Recording. Hi, everyone. Mary Ellen Vanaken, and I have a special guest for you for our Inside the World of Real Estate. We have Jackie O'Connor from the Boston metro area. So, Jackie, tell us a little bit about yourself and what areas do you serve?
Thanks. Nice to see you, Mary Ellen. I am in the Boston metro area. I have a couple of different markets that I serve. I live in two different towns part of the year. I'm lucky
Nice.
that we're coastal. So half the year I live in a town called Newburyport, which is an hour north of Boston. It's a very old shipping town with cobblestone sidewalks and streets and homes that were built in the turn of the century in the 1700s.
Wow.
Yeah, so really unique place, and I live on an island called Plum Island, which is 2 miles from town, and it's a really special, unique nature area. It's the number 2 Audubon Society in the entire United States, so we have really amazing plethora of birds. I never thought I would be a birder, but here I am. For years as a worker now. Yes.
Well, if you hear my birds in the background, I have 2 African gray birds. So those are
Yes.
pretty unique birds. But yes, I mean, I'm sure the birds are so beautiful there.
Yeah, to the point where they closed down the beaches until August, so that the birds can nest, and it's just a really special place. Like I see snowy owls on my drive in, and they're just hanging out, and yeah,
That
it's
is
really
so unique. And I
it's really
love that
spectacular.
I love that you're describing the area because as you're describing it, I don't know it from a hole, right, exactly where but I'm envisioning it like cobblestones. And then I think of like a European flair. And then you've got the beach and you've got that cold weather and the birds and stuff. So I love that. And
Yeah.
then besides that, you said you live somewhere else.
And then I also live in the south end of Boston, which is the oldest contiguous Victorian architecture in the United States. So really beautiful brownstone. I live in a brownstone,
Oh, I love that.
four-unit building, and we have a little private park behind that's just for the buildings that surround the park. So it's a really beautiful nature sort of setting. Setting's very important to me when choosing
Mhm.
housing. So I have a really unique, special place here in the South End, and I just bounce back and forth depending
I
on
was
who.
going to say, do you just like, you feel like, oh, I'm going to go to that house, going to go to that house.
Yeah, and basically it's like, oh, if I have showings on the North Shore, which is where Newburyport is, then I'll stay up at that house. And then if I have city showings, then I stay in the city. And this all sort of just kind of came about when I saw an ad on Boston.com for a beach house under $350,000. And I was like, I should go check that out. Um,
I love it.
Yes, this was 2016. And I was like, let's just see what's going on. This I can afford that. That seems great. I'll do that. And so I went up and I toured the area, and the agent that weekend had like over 100 parties through the property. And I made what I thought was a very aggressive offer with no inspection and no financing contingency and 10,000 over asking because nothing had ever sold on the island over asking. And I was pretty blown out of the water. I ended up going for like 400K. And I was like, oh, wow, this is an interesting place. Like, what's going on there? And then I just started, learning more about the market and engaging with the local agents. And then now I am a local agent. And during COVID, I brought family members from New York City moved to the area. I brought up 15 of my friends from the city who wanted an escape from COVID, and they all bought multiple homes. Some of them own now 4. And it's a really cool vacation rental market. So I kind of bounce back and forth between the two and service buyers all up and down kind of a 40-mile radius.
That is really cool. And that's just like something I did not know about you. But, like I'm from New York and I can just see that a lot of people would be like, oh, a beach house and under a good price point. Like you can't find like that, under 500,000 anywhere really. So that's
No.
kind of cool.
And now it's 700. You can
Yeah,
find
of course, of
1,000
course.
or 700, but it was 350 at one point.
But now there's 7. So under $1 million, you can find a cute little beach house, right,
Yes,
in your area, which is
absolutely.
awesome. That's pretty amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your background, where you came from. So I know somewhere you came from is really close to where I live now.
Yeah, so I grew up in Dunwoody, Sandy Springs. So we have that obviously Atlanta connection. And I went to Georgia Southern. So before it was considered a good school, before the Hope Scholarship, at any rate. But yeah, and so I worked for Delta Airlines right out of
Oh,
university.
wow. Okay.
Yes. And that's how I ended up in Boston. Was they gave me the opportunity to move, and I had always wanted to live in the Northeast. And originally, I had considered living in New York City because it seemed very attractive to me with, the opportunity to travel and more
Yes.
international travel. And I had put in for a base transfer into New York, and apparently, if you put in for a base transfer in New York, you're always accepted because they always need people. And I was
Ah,
not. And I thought, oh, that's really strange. And so I was getting ready to put in the next month because you have to put in like 2 months in advance because the way the scheduling works for
sure.
airlines. And I had a layover in DC, and I went out with one of my girlfriends from school, and her husband was from Massachusetts. And he just sold me on moving to Massachusetts. I'd never even been here.
Oh,
Um, and
wow.
he really sold me on all the benefits of, to be here, immediate access to the ocean, 2 hours from amazing skiing and mountains, lower price point overall, more livable, if you will, in terms of, New York City, especially for someone just sort of starting out as a young person, without a financial
Mhm. Sure.
safety net. And I just took the bunch and I put in for Boston and just never looked back. 20 years, 20,
So how long did you work for Delta?
I was with Delta from 1999 to 2006. And then when they declared bankruptcy in 2006, they gave a leave of absence.
Okay.
And I used that as my opportunity to get into real estate.
Wow, that's so g so what I see from you is your backgrounds. Okay, you're from the South. You decide you wanna go up to the North. You are, you work for Delta, which is such a high level customer service company. So with that background going into real estate, you're knowing how to deal with your clients because you're high level customer service, you're going to their needs, and you're a good listener. So that's what I see, just like looking from your background. Am I on target with that?
Yes, I'm very, very service oriented. That's really, really
Yes.
important to me is the service and going above and beyond, recognizing the client's needs before they tell you their needs and
I love
getting to them first, which is very challenging in this wound up market. Everyone here is very highly educated. They have lots of information about the housing market. Sometimes they know more than you do.
yes, right? We love that.
Yes, and that's okay, but they ask me to decipher the information. I know this information. What does this mean in terms of my home search or my home sale? So very much in that way, I'm, considered, I would say, an advocate and an advisor. I take more of an advisory role and a service role on that matter.
And I love that because I'm surrounding myself with agents just like me, and you are just like me when it comes to that, because we're high level customer service, surprise and delight, and get the job done, right? Get it done. So, all right. So tell me a little bit about um, average prices in your two different markets, and just so that people kind of have an idea. If you have like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, how much square footage? What is that going to cost?
Yeah, so in the south end of Boston, a 3 bedroom, 2 bath with parking would be, 1,500 to 2,200 square feet. And for a gut job, you're looking at about $2 million,
Wow.
where it
Okay.
like needs everything, needs new kitchen, new HVAC, new patio, new bathrooms, etc. And for fully renovated, you're looking at 2.7 to 4 million,
Okay. All right.
depending on the setting and, is it a corner building? Does it have extra windows? Is there
Right.
a pocket park behind it? Does it have 3 parking spots instead of 2 because it's a wider building? So it depends on the layout because we have some places that have, 450 square feet per floor and are 5 floors. And then we have others that are 1,000 square feet per floor.
Right.
So there's all kinds of nuances in this market that really
Mhm.
do affect pricing. Um,
Okay.
and then in the Newburyport market, there you're looking at a starter home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, it's a gut job is probably 750.
Okay.
And for a nicely renovated home, you're looking at, and this is, 1,400 to 1,700 square feet.
Sure.
You're no garage, by the way. You're looking at 1.5.
Yeah, but you know what? This is great for our viewers because, like I said, everybody lives across the world, right? So they don't know what you can get. So we're just kind of giving you an idea that in your market, this is kind of what you can get. So I love that. What are the most desirable neighborhoods in your city and why?
So, I think for Newburyport, people either love to be on the island,
Mhm.
because it's just like feels like vacation all the time, but you're 3 miles from, grocery stores and real downtown.
Nice.
I think for those that are looking for more like day-to-day action, then they want to be downtown. And there's a couple of neighborhoods within the downtown. There's the central downtown district, and then there's the north end and the south end, which
Okay.
also have those same in the city as well. So it might be slightly confusing for the viewers,
Mhm.
but at any rate, the south end, all of these properties are contiguous along the Merrimack River, which is there's bald eagles that fly by on the regular. Like it's really beautiful. Tons of marinas. You can walk to everything, all the restaurants, the library, grocery stores, just everything is walkable. That's sort of how most of Massachusetts in the coastal areas is set up as walkable villages.
Yeah.
So you really get to know your neighbors. There's, individual neighborhood associations within, 6 to 8 blocks. They have their own block parties. They, get together for Halloween. It's very neighborhood focused. We don't have anything like, oh, here's, like in Georgia, for instance, right? Where like Martin's Landing, right? Like
Right.
that type of environment does not exist here.
Okay.
That is just not even, a thing. So, we don't have HOAs mostly unless it's a condominium building. Like there's almost no communities that have HOAs. So, you can do whatever you want with your house, which,
Which
makes
is really nice because we have the complete opposite here in Atlanta where everybody's in an HOA, and not that you're confined to do things, it's just the way it is. So it's a
right,
big adjustment when someone comes to Atlanta, that's
right,
coming from your area because they don't even know what an HOA is, right?
right, right. Or they think it's a condo when it's an
Right,
HOA.
exactly. You're like, nope, it's a
Right.
home, it's a subdivision.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's sort of like Newburyport in a nutshell, and then, in Boston, I'm particularly fond of the South End. I've lived here for over a decade. I think what makes it unique is, it's, framed after the British model, so everything is situated around the squares and the parks.
Okay.
So, we have lots of little hidden green space, the commercial space is woven in to
Nice.
how we live, so, you might walk, a block and you'll see, a little bodega, and then you'll see a wine shop, and then you'll see a hair salon, and
Okay.
dry cleaners. And so everything you kind of need is within a 2 to 3 block radius of your individual home, even within the neighborhood. So that I really love, and I know all of my neighbors. I'm really active in the neighborhood just because I want to keep it beautiful and
Right.
protected, and so I love that. And then Beacon Hill is kind of what most people think of when they come to Boston, which is we also in the South End have gas lamps, lit streets, and they're also the British model, and they're around the squares as well.
Right.
So less commercial space woven in because it's a much smaller neighborhood. But that's where a lot of people, when they move to Boston, like, I want to live in Beacon Hill. And it's a very exclusive, very old people have lived there for, hundreds of years. Families, townhouses are passed down amongst them. And so it's right on the river. So that gives us a unique proximity. And then, of course, everything in Boston pretty much is walkable within 30
Yeah,
minutes,
exactly.
the core neighborhoods. So, and then the other kind of top neighborhood, I would say, from a price perspective, doesn't mean that it's a living perspective,
Mhm.
is Back Bay, which is the French style with the wide avenue malls where the commercial space is limited to one particular or two particular streets and the rest is residential.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, and so they have, they light up the trees and all the streets are grid-like. Um,
Mhm.
They were built during the grid time. And so where Beacon Hill is,
Yeah, right.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so a little later build time. And I think that has its own unique attributes in terms of being able to walk to the public garden. So there's lots of benefits to all the neighborhoods. I think there's more of a lock and go set in Back Bay. So they come here in the summer. I feel like less year-round residents, although I am a member of the Back Bay Neighborhood Association because I
Sure.
want to be involved in all of the local neighborhoods and learn.
Right. You want to know what's going on. Yeah. I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would say those are kind of our top 3 core contiguous neighborhoods, and then, of course, the North End, which many people know from coming to Boston is, the old Italian district, if you will, and tons of Italians still live there, that came in the, mid to early 1900s,
Yes.
and they live in community homes. So, they bought, a 4-family, and all the family lives in that building.
Yeah.
They
I
will
mean, I love that. I love when I come to Boston and I love the different, I'm from New York, so I'm used to like all the different cultures and stuff, but Boston is just so special. I mean, I just love being there, especially in the fall time when the trees are, changing color and stuff. It's always really pretty too.
Yeah, they do
Um,
a great job.
so any other big draws that are why people are moving to your area? Like
Um,
anything else that you want to add?
oh,
Because I think you
so
touched a lot on this already.
I think the big draw for Massachusetts, we have so many industries, so we have a very, very stable market here. So
Mhm.
even in the economic collapse of 2008, prices just stayed flat or
Oh, good.
increased
Yeah.
during
Mhm.
that time, unless you were sort of like in a turnover gentrifying neighborhood. Those sort of suffered quite a bit, but
Right.
in general, prices just went up.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of money in this market. So when things aren't, you know, as swift in terms of sale prices, they just don't sell because they don't have to. They have multiple homes, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 homes. So it's just not a priority to
Yeah.
sell in a down market. So it keeps our market very stable. So people move here, I think, in general for the lifestyle,
Okay.
walkability, I think, public transportation, not being tied to having a car to, live your daily life. You can even get to several beaches on the trains. Um,
Mhm.
so, we're very well connected in terms of the transportation, public transportation. We have a very robust commuter rail. If I wasn't driving for work, I could literally go from my house to my sister's house in 45 minutes on the train.
Yeah,
And
that's what I love about the big cities. I mean, we know that Atlanta doesn't have that.
right.
And being from New York and working in New York City on Wall Street, I totally understand being able, and that's why I appreciate Boston. I appreciate the cities that you're able to use public transportation if you need to, like to get around. So,
Absolutely. Obviously, with our careers, that's not really possible on
no,
a
it's
day-to-day
not.
basis.
It's
But
definitely not, but
yeah,
but it's nice to be able to do that. Um,
absolutely, absolutely. And then
so,
people do move here to go to university, to teach at
mhm.
university. They move here for healthcare reasons because they need to live here for several years because they're in medical treatments. So they'll buy properties during that time. They move here because they work in finance. We have a lot of Fortune 5
Mhm.
companies here. And then also, I think the biotech industry as well. So we're very diversified in our, opportunities for employment here. So there's
Mhm.
really something for everyone, whether it's, tourism, education, medicine, or research. We're full-fledged here.
Yeah, I love that. Any big challenges that people have when they move to your area?
I think sticker shock. Um,
Yeah,
even people come from New York City, they think, "Oh, it should be cheaper," and it's just
right,
not, and
right.
it's definitely not less expensive for rent. Um,
Yeah, rent.
that is a big sticker shock for people. They're like, "Oh, well, we just don't have the density. We don't have the high-rise general living. It's very rare. It's just not what we have. We don't have the towers." So that makes it challenging, I think, from that perspective. I also think people are not prepared for the traffic, and this is someone coming from Atlanta who literally was regularly stuck on the highway for 2+ hours going to the
Right.
airport or more. which was 30 miles away from my house.
Yes.
And they are not prepared for the traffic because we don't have 8-lane highways, we have 3.
Yeah.
Um, and they allow us to use the breakdown lanes during high traffic times. Uh,
Interesting. Okay.
yes. So that, that can help with the commutability, if that is even a word. So that I think that's something people are surprised about. I think they're also surprised about the lack of parking in the city.
Mhm.
Um, even in Newburyport, a lot of the properties were built with 0 lot lines. There is no parking. You park on the street.
Right.
And so that's a challenge, I think, for people just to become
Oh, I
accustomed.
think so too. I definitely think so. And I love that we're having this conversation because I would never think of that, but you're right. People do. And I think every time I go to Boston, we don't rent a car. We just go on the public transportation. We get there, get
Right.
where we need to get to. So that makes
Absolutely.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about some of the industries in the market. Any ones that or headquarters you want to add to the list?
Well, we have, obviously we have 140 universities within a 3-mile radius of Boston. So
Wow.
it's,
Okay. That's
yeah,
huge.
that's huge. Yeah. So it's not like, oh, we have Georgia Tech and, Georgia State. No, no, and
No.
Emory, right? Like those are sort of,
Yeah.
no, we have 140 of those universities. So that's
Wow.
pretty intense in terms from an educational standpoint. So we have a huge influx of students. So, 9 months out of the year, we have an additional population of about 150,000 students that come to school here.
Mhm.
And so they really struggle finding housing because you are allowed to discriminate against students.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you can say no undergraduate students. And many apartment buildings do not allow undergrads, even with cosigners and other things. So the housing situation for students is very challenging here, uh,
Okay.
for that reason. So yes, so all the universities, from Harvard to MIT to Boston University to Northeastern to Brandeis, I could just keep going on and on. Wellesley College. I mean, the list is infinite. And then we also have places, we have Saucony that's based here, and New Balance that's based here, and Fidelity that's based here, and biotech from, Millennium Pharmaceuticals that, gave us the vaccine, right, for COVID,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
Vertex Pharmaceuticals. We just have so many, and then we have so many major outposts because of the think tank that Massachusetts is. We have the most highly educated population in the entire United States,
Mhm. Yeah.
congested in one particular area. So that leads to a lot of, interesting startup opportunities, whether it's in biotech or finance. So we just have really just a mecca of the smarts, if you will.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it's like, just when you were saying 140 universities, that just kind of blew my mind. But it's true because every time I think of Boston, I can just name, I mean, everybody can name 10 off the top of their head, right? So
Yes.
that's incredible. And there's probably a lot of small schools there too. I mean, we know all the big ones, but nobody knows all the little small schools too as well. That's great. So activities, what do people do for fun in your area?
So obviously we have the convenience of the beach. You can be to the beach within 15 minutes of, downtown Boston. And then, the coastline, is so extensive. So beach definitely in the summers, even in the winters, people go for beach walks. They just bundle up and, just get that cold, crisp air and hear the seagulls, and it's nice. So that's one big thing. The other big thing is because of the proximity to the mountains. So, in under an hour to 2 hours, you can be in really great mountainous areas to ski,
That's
snowshoe, yeah, cross country skiing, downhill skiing. So that's really what the winter, a lot of people are gone every weekend. So that makes it challenging for us for open houses, because people are gone skiing in the
right.
winter. And then the summer, they're gone going to their second home or they're spending time at the beach. So no one's really around on the weekends, including the real estate agents.
Well,
uh,
I would say a good time to do open houses would be during the week, right? You have
yes.
to kind of challenge if you're going to do that. But
Yeah.
usually, I'm sure once you get something on the market, because I'm sure your market is pretty hot. Once you get something on the market, you're going to get showings right away, and you're going to sell it, and probably don't need to do as many open houses or anything like that.
we try to give people a balanced opportunity to view the homes, including
Sure.
possibility of private showings. Our market is a little bit different here. For the most part, our market in the Eastern Board of Massachusetts is all company showing. So the listing agent will meet you at the property, and then the buyer agent will come. And so it's lots of scheduling. I don't know how we do it, but we do.
Yes.
Between the seller's schedule, our schedule, the agent's schedule, and the buyer's schedule, but somehow it all happens miraculously, Mary Ellen. I don't know how.
That's amazing. And just like coming from your background of being in Delta, juggling all these things, you have to juggle in real estate and you have to accommodate schedules and last minute cancellations. And yeah, I can definitely see. So like you, when you have a listing, you want to give everybody an opportunity to see the property. So you're trying to really make that work. And that can be a challenge in itself, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the other thing people like to do is, when the weather's great, everyone's outside. They're picnicking in the park, they're on the river. You have really great, we have really amazing green space here. There's a, 50-mile loop around the Charles River that you can just bike and bike and bike, or you can go out in your kayak. Rowing is a big part of the Massachusetts culture. Many people are rowers. We have Head of the Charles, which is one of the top rowing competitions in the United States.
Mhm.
People come from all over the world. That's in October. The other big thing is marathon. That's a day
Yes.
off here. That is a state holiday, and that usually falls on tax day. So we usually get an extra day in Massachusetts to file our federal and state
There
taxes.
you go, because it's a holiday for the marathon. That's really cool. And
Yes.
then I noticed like everyone's very active. They're out and about when you're in Boston. They're running, they're walking, they're biking, they're just doing their thing. So it's a typical like city, but yet there's so much green space and so much areas like beaches and stuff. I love that. So the food, the culture, the music, the museums,
Yes.
sports. Sports. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, the
Wow.
sports are huge here. We have the Boston Celtics, which, won so many championships, and they have really diehard fans. Then we have the Boston Red Sox, which, sadly, we had a very long stretch that was broken finally in the early 2000s, and won some championships there. That is one of the oldest original stadiums. It's really intimate and special. It's 34,000 people versus some of these stadiums that are 80 or 100,000 people. So it's
Yes, I
really,
love that.
it's walkable from my house. So I really have that great opportunity to enjoy that. It's a 20-minute, beautiful walk to the Boston Red Sox stadium.
Yes.
Then we have the Patriots. Their stadium is located outside of Boston. And then we also have the Revolution soccer, which is, obviously gaining traction in the United States, the European football. So we're excited to have the Revolution team as well. And then hockey.
Hockey. I mean, how could you not go wrong? I mean, I think of hockey, you always think of, up north. So yeah.
Yes, yes. So hockey is obviously very big here, the Bruins. So literally there's always something to do in terms of sporting events, pretty much, 24/7 in terms of, or 365 days, I should say.
Yes,
We
exactly.
we pretty much have kind of some sporting event. And if not, then the stadiums are transformed into concert venues,
Oh,
or,
nice.
we just hosted recently the ice skating championships. U.S. ice
Oh,
skating
nice.
championships were a couple weeks ago, and that was held in the TD Garden, which is where the Celtics play. So yeah, so that's big. The restaurant scene is very neighborhood focused. So we
I
do
love
not
that.
have chains here unless it's in a touristy area or like near the convention center. Like you would not see an Applebee's here or a TGI Fridays or
Okay.
a Houston's, or none of those restaurants exist here. We have some local chains, but even that, they maybe only have 10 outposts, if even that, throughout the kind of whole Boston metro
Yeah.
area. So it's really neighborhood focused on individual restaurant groups. And so we have really amazing food here, I have to tell you.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Yes, from the fresh seafood, obviously, which literally has been caught 2 days before, if even that. So the proximity is great to obviously fresh seafood. And then because we are so close to so many of the great Vermont farms, we get tons of great, grass-fed beef from Vermont, steaks,
Mhm.
all of that is, very local. So we have a lot of farm to table restaurants, which is a great thing. I think a lot of towns, of course, are doing that. But we love that here. And then, we have some neighborhoods like the North End, which is, mostly Italian food, although there is one sushi restaurant in that neighborhood and it's great. So
That's so interesting.
yeah, but that's it. There's no diversity. It's literally one sushi and the rest is Italian. Um, and
I
then
love
we
it.
have the South End, which is sort of a mix of different celebrity chefs. This is a very celebrity chef, art gallery type focused place.
Mhm.
So, every place serves tuna tartare. There's really nowhere that you're going unless it's a grab and go that you're getting an entree for less than $25.
Right.
And that's just the reality of the situation in this neighborhood. But then you can go to a place like East Boston, which is where the airport is and is looking across at the core Boston neighborhoods. And there you can have Colombian food and Peruvian food and all kinds of Latino fusion food. And then you've got Italian food because the
Yeah.
neighborhood has seen so many iterations. It's generally has been an immigrant neighborhood, going back to the Jews in the early 1900s and then the
Right.
Italians and now the Latinos. I'm kind of putting all of South
There's
America.
just so much history and there's so much culture in Boston. I mean, there really is. I mean, it's just incredible. And really you explaining it to us is just feels like I'm in Boston walking down the streets,
Absolutely.
smelling that good food, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. We already talked about commuting. What's the climate like in Boston?
Well, funny that you asked. Yesterday it was snowing a little bit. Um, that's
We're in April and it's snowing, so there
yeah,
you go.
snowflakes though. It wasn't like sticking.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
we are, you see those kind of like jokes where it's like, okay, you're in winter, then you're in like end of winter, then you're in fall spring, then you're in winter, then you're in rainy season, then you're in fall spring, then you're in spring. Oops, summer. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
literally how it goes here, and, yeah, we sort of giggle about that. The climate, it snows way less than it ever used to. I mean, when I moved here in 2000, we used to get snow days. It used to be, just put on your snow pants and go out and, make a snowman, in the local parks, but that just really doesn't exist anymore for the most part.
yeah. That's
We
good.
Yeah, so we have very little snow, but that has become very challenging here because it's supposed to snow, and when it doesn't, the rivers flood, and then it causes a lot of problems in general, because of the low-lying buildings that were built when it used to snow it was not an issue. So we're seeing a lot of climate change challenges here, and it'll be interesting to see what the community and obviously the world comes up with in terms of protecting these lower lying coastal areas, including downtown Boston.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been challenging, for sure. And then summer is absolutely beautiful. We do have humidity, of course, but nothing like Atlanta humidity. Many homes here do not have air conditioning, although
Right.
we're seeing more shift in that as the temperatures do increase. Generally, we're not in the 90s. We're usually not near 100 ever.
Yeah.
Um, but now we're seeing more and more of those sort of outlier days are happening more and more. So many people are adding central air conditioning to their homes, either through like mini splits or
Yeah,
um,
and that's so interesting because you don't think about it. I mean, I mean, I was born and raised in New York, and yes, we had air conditioning, but we had our windows open in the summertime, and the wind was blowing. I lived on Long Island, and it was great. And then it's like you come to the South, and I have clients come and they go, "You have air conditioning here?" I said, "Oh, you can't live without air conditioning. You have to have air conditioning here." So
yeah,
it's so interesting when people come from other parts of the country and it's just a normal thing for you to say, yeah, I just had a client who closed last week from California, and like one of his questions is in the beginning, does it have air conditioning? And I was like, yes, everything here has air conditioning. Welcome to Hotlanta,
yeah,
and we'll be all good. So so it's interesting how perspective is just blows your mind. So do you have any favorite spots, like when somebody comes into town and they say, Jackie, where should we go? Where do you tell them? I know
Yes.
that's a
Yeah, it's a great
loaded
question.
question, but
Yeah, no, I mean, it's somewhat of a loaded question because it's like, well, what do you want, right? We
yes,
have everything
exactly.
here. So I would say if they're looking for like an authentic experience with like a local restaurant, I would tell them, of course, if you want Italian, go to the North End.
Yep.
I think, that's more mom and pop Italian. If you're looking for more upscale, full service, white tablecloth type of restaurants, then I would suggest visiting more of Back Bay.
Okay.
They have a lot of that, old steakhouse, non-chain type of places, and people really enjoy those, for that sort of old steakhouse vibe. If you're looking for like, I really want some great seafood and, I don't know where to go. One of my favorite places is Castle Island, which is in South Boston, and it's a really unique place. It's basically on the harbor slash ocean, kind of where they meet. And there's Castle Island Seafood, which is this seasonal, just opened. And you can go get a flat fried clam sandwich or fried shrimp or
Oh,
whatever.
yummy. I'm just thinking, I'm like jealous because we're landlocked here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yes, you can go get your clam sandwich and sit on the beach, and people love that. So if you're looking sort of more that authentic shacky type of seafood place, then that but it's only seasonal, so April through October, because it's not insulated, and that's a great place to go to sort of get that
nice.
individual Boston flair.
Love it. Those are great. So what do you like to do outside of real estate when you're not doing real estate per se?
Well, as some people may know or not know about real estate, we are on 24/7, and that is challenging, especially in our market where things go in a day. So you have to be really willing and able to cancel your plans to go meet a client to show
Yeah,
them a property, or you never know when the highest paying buyer, wants to see one of your listings. So you have to be ready for that. So outside of the real estate hours, which tend to be 9 to 7 or 8 p.m. in the summer because it
mhm,
stays light here till 10 p.m. So we show properties pretty late actually. And then in the winter, it's like 9 to 4 because it's dark, and we're not showing property in the dark generally unless we
right.
absolutely have to. So in the winter, I travel more.
Okay.
That because it's just less demand, it's a little bit easier. So travel is one of my passions. I travel all over the world. Obviously, I was a Delta girl,
So
so
you did everything. What? Yeah, which we'll get into after. So
yeah.
travel.
Yeah, and then locally, I love to go to the beach. That's my happy place. I have 2 homes at the beach, one of which I rent now, and the other one that I live in part-time. So we do a lot of beaching. I love to read. So when I can get some uninterrupted time, I love to read, whether it be for pleasure or for business.
Nice.
Reading is one of my favorite hobbies. And then I'm gotten into Pilates. That is kind of become my outlet. I've been doing Pilates now for a couple of weeks, and I think I'm addicted.
There you
I
go. Anything is addicting. It's like pickleball, lifting weights, playing tennis. I mean, it's like once you start with something, it gets addicting. Well, that's amazing. So, talking about travel, tell us either about somewhere you want to go or somewhere that you've been that you want our viewers to know.
That's a great question. Well, somewhere I went recently this year, I went to Guatemala, and do
Nice.
not sleep on Guatemala. It is absolutely fantastic. We had a fabulous time. I went with a bunch of real estate families that I'm friends with that I've met through
Mhm.
my travels. And we met up in Guatemala and we toured. We created our own tour. We rented our own giant van.
Nice.
Yeah, and Brian O'Connell from Fayetteville drove us all around, and we had a fabulous time. We toured all these little towns, the touristy to non-touristy places. We spent a week at Lake Atzilan, which is like, one of the most beautiful lakes I've ever experienced. And we boated to
Nice.
there were like 20 different villages on this lake. It's pretty large,
Oh,
like much
nice.
larger than Lake Lanier. And all crystal clear water, like
Wow.
surrounded by volcanoes. And then each sort of section around, and you just can get there by boat. And so we checked out all the different islands via boat, and that was really special. And the food was absolutely fantastic. The people were lovely, and the pricing was very favorable for Americans.
Nice. Nice.
So that was awesome. So don't sleep on Guatemala. Somewhere that I want to go that I haven't been, I really want to go to Argentina.
Oh, I
It's
love Argentina. Oh,
it's been on my short list. I have not done much of South America. I've done a lot of Central America, but not enough, or any of other than Venezuela, South America. So I need to do more South America. So
mhm.
Argentina is on my short list.
Okay. You got to go to Iguazu Falls
Yes.
in Argentina, but they
Yes.
haven't, yeah. So you have to go there. It's amazing. So, and Buenos Aires is always interesting to go and do some dance class, and the food's really good there too. Well, that's great. All right. So I have one last question for you, and just talk about one of your most rewarding real estate transactions and why.
Oh, that's a great question.
I know there's just so many of them, right? But just maybe a recent one or just something off the top.
Yeah. So what comes to mind right now is one that I'm listing today. I've been
Okay.
working with this family since August of
Okay.
last year. They own a very, very unique property. It's 203 Adams Street in Milton, Massachusetts, and that's like a 15 to 25-minute drive, depending where in Milton, from downtown Boston. You don't have to take the highway there; you can take back roads, which is kind of nice.
Mhm.
At any rate, this home was built somewhere between the Revolutionary War and 1800. We don't know exactly when the home was built, because of just records, of course, right? But at any
Mhm.
rate, it's classified as a mansion. We don't know the square
Oh,
footage.
wow.
These people bought it from a museum 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it has 7 fireplaces, a
Oh my
bar, a 3-car garage, a little less than 3 acres of just rolling beautiful land, and it overlooks Hutchinson's Field, which is a Revolutionary War site,
goodness.
and you can see all of downtown Boston from this particular property, yet it's walkable to Adams Village, which is a village within Milton, and the commuter rail. So you can be in downtown Boston in 10 minutes on the commuter rail from this property. It has its own Wikipedia page. So historic, obviously, classifications. And the family, because they've been there so long, they're elderly and they need to move. And
Right.
and they were feeling a lot of pressure around moving, leaving their, his Civil War club, her garden club. They have to go to an assisted type living place.
Oh, yeah.
And so, because the house is so huge and only 2 people have lived there for the last 25 years, they accumulated a lot of things.
Yes.
And so the son-in-law and daughter, we've been heavily involved. They've been helping quite a bit. And so it's really taken a literal village to get them to the point where they're ready to list today. Uh,
Nice. Wait,
and
tell me how much this is gonna be listed at.
3.3, uh,
Okay.
and it needs all the things.
Okay. So it needs a lot of work,
It
but
does. It's in great condition. You could just live there. Nothing's falling apart. But I think today's buyer would say, well, the kitchen's 40 years old, so I'm
yeah,
going to need a new
right.
kitchen.
Of course.
So, there's 4.5 bathrooms. They all need to be renovated.
Yeah.
It's over 10,000 square feet. So
And
it's a
it's history. I mean, and 3 acres, and like you said, it's a unique property, and you've like what I'm seeing, and I'm the same way when you're dealing with those empty nesters that are moving to the last part of their life, their last assisted living, and then working with the family and working with them and working with everybody, organizers, and just trying to go through the memories of what 50 years or 40 years they've lived there.
yes,
It's a lot, and it's a lot on us too. We want to, and we don't want to rush those people because they really need to go through things. So you're always checking in on them. What do you need next? What's the next step? So you're always in communication. What's the next step? The next step is okay, we're going to do this room this week and this, so you're heavily involved, and, you know, you're working so many months before you even list it, right?
Oh, yeah,
And then you have to sell it, and who knows how long it might. So you're really entrenched with that family for a
for
very
sure.
long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've gotten to know them, and initially they were, very closed off, because I was brought in by the children. Um,
Right,
and they had so many friends from Garden Club and Civil War Club that were real estate agents,
right,
and they were having a real hard time choosing who to hire amongst those people that they've known, some of them for 20 and 30 years, although
right.
maybe they've been doing real estate for 5 years, right? But they're
Correct.
longtime friends. The top agent in that town lives right next door. He's probably going to go bananas when he sees my listing go up today. But anyway, I feel like I won. The people are lovely. I've been really able to help them. They've allowed me to help them. I think that makes
Yes.
a difference. They've taken all my advice, and I'm really excited to represent this property, and them, and I hope to obtain, a way above asking.
Yes,
Hopefully.
and I can't wait. I can't wait to publicize it myself. So I can't wait
Yes,
for all the stuff. So once
I will.
once you
I
have it listed, I want all the videos and
will
everything, and
send
I'm
it to
gonna
you.
just
Yep,
blast it out to my database and stuff. So
absolutely. It's going live. It's going live on the off market today. So
okay, cool. Well, you
if
just
that
send it to
makes
me
sense.
when you're ready to publicize it. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that maybe you want to tell our viewers here?
Oh goodness. I think Boston, if you haven't been, you should come.
Oh,
And you should
definitely.
see what we're about. You should see the density, the history, from the Freedom Trail, right, where the slaves came, to Paul Revere's home, the old state house where literally the, Boston Tea Party, the Revolution, a lot of it is documented here and happened here. And I think there's such an opportunity. If you have, if you're a history buff, this is definitely a place to come. Pay for a tour. It is worth every penny to have someone bring you around and teach you
Yes.
about the architecture and what went on in these neighborhoods. My particular neighborhood was highly African American and still is. And when the white flight happened in the 60s and 70s, the African Americans were able to buy these brownstones for, $1,000, and now they're worth $5 million unrenovated. So
Yeah.
they have amazing opportunity here, in terms of their assets. But there's just so much to see and do and enjoy. And then you're only an hour from Maine. You're 40 minutes from New Hampshire. You're an hour and 10 minutes from Vermont. So you can hit a lot of states if you're one of those state checkers. Like I've been to this many states.
I love it. State checkers.
Yeah, you can get a lot of bang for your buck with a visit here.
There you go. You can hit all the states. There you go. I love it.
Absolutely.
I
So,
love it.
so I think come visit us, see us, give me a call. I'm happy to meet you for a cup of coffee.
And it has been such a pleasure spending this time with you, getting to know you and our viewers, getting to know all about Boston and all the areas and the culture and the history. And it's just somewhere you have to visit. So thank you so much for being here. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye, Mariella. Thank
Bye.
you.